All right, so I help a lot of clients make a move to the city of Murrieta, California each and every year, and I get asked a lot of the same questions, so I thought this would be a really helpful video to make for you guys. I'm gonna go over the top 5 most frequently asked questions that I get from my clients that are making a move to the city of Murrieta. Let's go ahead and get into it. Hey guys, hey again, my name is Justin Short. I'm a realtor and team leader with the Short Real Estate team here at Keller Williams in Temecula, California. And this video is all about the city of Murrieta. I'm gonna go over the top 5 most frequently asked questions that I get from my clients that are making a move to the city of Murrieta. I think I'm a really good person to answer these questions for you and help kind of give you all this information. I've lived here in the Temecula Murrieta Valley for over 25 years now. I've lived in Temecula, I lived in Murrieta. I think I can give you some really good information from somebody that's lived here a long time, kind of give you, the firsthand experience. And I've helped a lot of clients each year make a move to Murrieta and have a lot of experience helping them with that as well. So hopefully it'll be good information for you guys. But first, before I get into all the info, if you are liking real estate videos like this, please do me a favor, please hit like, please hit subscribe to the channel. Obviously it helps me and it helps my channel as we try to continue to grow it. And then we have new videos that we put out each and every week. So you're gonna see market update videos, recommendations for best neighborhoods, worst neighborhoods, all types of different real estate stuff. So if you want to see more information, you can check that out and stay tuned for that. And then if you have any specific real estate questions, you guys can feel free to reach out anytime. So you're gonna see my information either down below this video or at the end. You can see my cell phone, my email, you can call, you can text, you can email me. Happy to answer any questions you might have, help point you in the right directions, give you a recommendation or two. Or of course, if I can help you out with your real estate search, I'd love to do that. So it's what I do for a living, it's how I earn a living, and would love the opportunity to help you and your family. All right, so we'll get into all the information here. Again, we're gonna talk about the top 5 most frequently asked questions here in the city of Murrieta. Number 1, definitely the most common question that I get is, how does the city of Murrieta compare to the city of Temecula? And really what I tell people is they compare really, really, really well. The city of Murrieta and Temecula are very, very similar. There's really almost no difference in the quality of life from one city to the other. Very easily, you can drive right over the border, drive one street over. You're gonna cross from city to city and you would not even know. They really blend together. They're really sister cities. They're both very, very squeaky clean suburbs, very well taken care of. There are some differences in kind of what those differences are. Number 1, Murrieta is less expensive. So that's what puts it on most people's radar, right? Temecula is definitely a much more well-known city because the Temecula wine country is super popular. If you don't know, there's over 50 wineries now in the Temecula wine country. It's definitely a destination for people to come out, whether it's wine tasting and enjoying the weekend, or for weddings or bachelorette parties or other different types of venues and stuff. I say it's probably what makes this area so well known. There's a big mall here in Temecula, so that kind of puts it on the radar for people. They have a pretty vibrant downtown area. That's the Old Town Temecula that you may have seen before. And they also have a really big casino. That's the Pechanga Casino, which is super well known. They spend a ton of money in advertising and getting their name out there, commercials and sports team sponsorships and all types of different stuff. So Temecula, because of those reasons, is definitely more on the map for people. But like I mentioned, it is a little more expensive. So the average home right now in the city of Temecula is about $850,000. as opposed to the average home in the city of Murrieta is about $750,000. So it's about $100,000 price difference. And so for that, you can get $100,000 more for your money. A lot of people do look in Murrieta. I think it's what I recommend to most people is that they look in both, kind of see what's going to be the best fit, where they would feel that's the best fit is for their family. I have lived in both. We've lived in Temecula for probably the last 3-4 years now, but prior to that, I lived in the city of Murrieta for probably about 12 or 13 years. I moved about a mile down the street, I crossed over city lines, and honestly, my quality of life has not changed at all. They're really exactly the same. I really don't think there's much difference at all. You just get a lot more for your money in Murrieta. in this Temecula has a little bit more of that established city stuff, some more businesses, things like that. But really, if you live in Murrieta, you're going to use some of those facilities in Temecula, some of those shoppings and restaurants and things, and that's typically a 5 to 10 minute drive. So I don't think it's a big deal, but some people feel more particular about that, but you can definitely get more for your money in the city of Murrieta. Cool. All right, question number 2 that I get all the time is, what are the schools like in the city of Murrieta? So Murrieta has its own school district. That is the Murrieta Valley Unified School District. It is a great public school system. It is super highly rated, across the board from elementary to middle school to high school. There's actually 3 different high schools. They are all really, really nice. They've done a lot of money to improve the campuses or build them, relatively recently. And I think they're really, really, really nice. So across the board, the school district is really highly rated, and it is one of the reasons that people decide to live here. People will move here from other parts of California to be a part of a good school district. That does go for Temecula as well, but it is definitely a huge plus to live here because of the school district. And that's a really good thing for resale value as well, long term, right? Long term, areas that are part of a good school district tend to do well and tend to appreciate more than other areas over time. Number 3 question that I get all the time is, what neighborhoods should I avoid? So this is a conversation that I have with almost every client, it feels like. And really what they ask me is like, hey, we're thinking about moving to Murrieta. I don't know the area super well. What areas do I want to stay away from? What are the, the bad areas that are not going to be safe, etc. And really the truth is 99% of the city of Murrieta is going to be a really, really nice place to live. So the city itself, it started being built, you see homes at least. Homes started being built in the city of Murrieta in like the late 80s, early 90s. So those are kind of the oldest tract homes, but most of the city was built from like the mid 90s to mid 2000s. And there is still new construction, there's still new homes that are being built today, but really kind of the most of the city was built from mid 90s to mid 2000s. So because of that, it's relatively new construction. The city was built relatively recently, and it is really, really well taken care of. The city is really a squeaky clean suburb, super well maintained. There is a big police force presence. Murrieta has their own PD. It is a very, very safe area. There's a big military presence. A lot of people that live here, live here and then commute out to the military bases down in, San Diego. So it's definitely a big military presence. And Murrieta is constantly rated as one of the safest cities in the country. It's been anywhere from the top 10, top 20. I think right now it's somewhere in the top 100 safest cities in the US, which is a huge deal. And like I mentioned, really across the board, the city is going to be really, really clean, really well taken care of, and very safe. Outside of, I would say maybe one area in particular that has a lot of multifamily rentals, so a lot of like quadplexes and triplexes, so 3 and 4 unit buildings. So because of that, they're like all rentals, not well taken care of, and there's a lot of turnover there. That's probably the one area I would say is that I tell most of my clients to probably not look in that area, but those are different, right? Those are rentals and 3 units, 4 units. It's a different type of property than buying a single family home. But outside of that, I would say across the board, the city is going to be a really nice place to live, really almost everywhere. There's not a bad area or bad neighborhood or anything like that. There's going to be pros and cons to different areas for sure. Some neighborhoods a little bit nicer. Some might have no HOA and more rentals and a little more run down. And some might have a high HOA that's a little more particular, and it's going to be a little more buttoned up. So there's pros and cons to everything, but in general, 99% of the city is going to be really, really nice. All right, so then question number 4. It's kind of the inverse of the last question, but this one is, what are the best areas to live in Murrieta? So for this, kind of the way I break it down to people is, typically for most people in Murrieta, the most desirable and really the most expensive part of the city of Murrieta is going to be living in West Murrieta. So if you're not familiar with kind of what that is, really if you look at the city on a map, so you have the freeway, you have the 15 freeway runs more or less, pretty north and south to kind of split the city. So 15 freeway north and south, anything on the left side of the freeway, so the west side of the freeway, that's going to be considered West Murrieta. so on the west side. You also, off that freeway, off the 15 freeway, you have a 215 freeway that runs a little bit more north and northeast. So that's going to run northeast towards the city of Riverside. So you kind of have the two freeways. So between that, they form a V, right? So you have the West Murrieta is on the west side of the 15. Between the two freeways, that's going to be Central Murrieta. So right there in the middle, but between the two, Central Murrieta. And then on where the 215 freeway is on the right side, so the east side of the freeway, that would be East Murrieta. So you have West Murrieta, Central Murrieta, East Murrieta. So the most desirable tends to be West Murrieta. What makes it so desirable is a few things. So one, West Murrieta is kind of like its own city within a city. So because of where you're at, you don't really need to cross over that 15 freeway very often. And really, it's kind of a pain. Anytime you have to cross over the freeway, you're taking a bridge. There's only a few of those main roads that cross the freeway, throughout the city. So all of them tend to get pretty congested. It's just kind of a hassle every time you have to get over it, right? There's just traffic, you're just kind of dealing with that. When you're on the west side, because it's kind of self-contained, really all your schools, you're gonna have elementary schools, middle schools, high schools are all gonna be on the west side. You're gonna have grocery stores, multiple grocery stores, shopping centers, all that type of stuff, doctor's offices, really everything you can kind of stay on the west side. You're not gonna have to leave very often. Not only that, you also happen to have some of the nicest neighborhoods in the city are going to be over in West Murrieta. And then in addition to that, if you do have to commute out for work or if you have to head out of the area, because when you're on the west side of the freeway, it's very easy and very quick to access the 15 freeway because you're just a minute or two from the freeway. So it just makes it super, super accessible, whether you're going north or whether you're going south. So those are the reasons that West Murrieta tends to be the most desirable. And like I mentioned, it tends to be a little more expensive as well. The second area is going to be Central Murrieta. So that's kind of between the two freeways, right? Kind of we're in the middle of that V. So that's Central Murrieta. Central Murrieta, I think, is a really nice place to live. What it tends to be, it's a little bit older. So there's a little bit more of those older homes that are kind of built in the late 80s to early to mid 90s. So it tends to be, it's a little bit more older. There tends to be a lot of neighborhoods with no HOAs. So that can be good or bad depending what you're looking for. But what is nice about it is because you are between the two freeways, it is very easy to access either of those freeways and you make a quick commute out of the area. So it tends to be real convenient because you're only about 5 to 10 minutes from the east side of the city, 5 to 10 minutes to the west side of the city. So it's just super, super accessible, which can be a big plus for people for sure. It does tend to be the least expensive of the three. So out of West Murrieta, Central Murrieta, East, Central tends to be the least expensive because it's a little bit older, right? So, and then East Murrieta, that's actually the side that I've lived on most commonly, or really my whole time in Murrieta, I lived on the east side of Murrieta. What I think is that some advantages there tend to be some newer homes, so which is nice, but also just the way that everything is laid out. The east side of Murrieta shares you touch the city lines into the city of Temecula. They kind of share some roads and you're very close to the city of Temecula, I guess is the easiest way to say that. So what's nice and convenient about it, if you live in East Murrieta and you're going to use some of those Temecula amenities, some of the restaurants or wineries or mall or anything like that, it's a lot more convenient to do that when you live on East Murrieta because it's just closer, right? So you might be five minutes or so away from a lot of the things that Temecula offers. So it's a little more accessible to Temecula, which can definitely be a plus. You can live a little bit further out and away, so depending where your house is, it can depend, but in general, East Murrieta, it tends to be a little more convenient to be touching and using the city of Temecula and all the amenities that are there. All right, so that's going to take us to question number 5 that I get the most, and it is, how is the job market and how's the commute in Murrieta? So if you're not super familiar with the city, one thing that you should know is that City Murrieta is often referred to as a bedroom community, so which means a lot of people live here in Murrieta and then they commute out for work. So they live here, they commute to San Diego, they commute to LA, and they commute to Orange County. The city puts out a stat where the average commute, they say, is about 25 minutes or so for the average person. I think that seems super low. Honestly, most of my friends or clients and people that I know, when they make their commute, people are typically closer to about 35 to 45 minutes, and some that are even closer to an hour. So I think kind of what they put out seems a little bit low for me, but that is the official stat from the city. But most people do not work here locally. There are a lot of businesses, so there's a lot of shopping centers, retail centers, doctors' offices, school, a ton of schools, and medical buildings. All those types of things are local, but there is not like a big employer, right? There's not like a big tech company or like a big manufacturer that's based here in Murrieta or has a big a big office space or anything like that. So because of that, most people do commute out for work. If you are lucky enough to be able to work remotely, obviously, post-COVID, a lot more people do work from home. If that's the case for you, that is a big plus. That really will take away the biggest pain point for most people when they live here, and that's the commute. So if you don't have to make that commute, or if you only have to drive, 1 or 2 times a week into an office, that is a huge plus as opposed to have to do that 5 days a week, right? But most people live here, do make a commute. I would say San Diego is probably the biggest destination that people commute to, but some people do go to LA and some people do go to Orange County. It just kind of depends, obviously, where the job is. But the average commute for most people, I would say between 35, 45 minutes, some closer to an hour, and most people do have to make that drive for work. So cool. Anyways, I hope that helps you guys out. Those are questions I get most often. If you have any other questions that you would like to have answered, feel free to reach out. You can see my information. You can call, you can text, you can email me, and hopefully I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.